All right.
I just ate a whole bunch of meat, and I have nothing funny to say to open this podcast. My brain is just not functioning. It's a little slow. It's sort of like I was down at the OpenStack Summit the other day, and I had just had a lovely barbecue lunch at Rudy's. Everyone likes Rudy's. Sure. It's fine. Although I go there and I overhear people saying like, this is the best barbecue ever anywhere. And I'm like, I mean, it's not terrible. It's just like, this is like a good $10 bottle of wine from H-E-B. It'll get the job done. It doesn't make you kill yourself, but it's like not awesome.
It's like Rudy's is my kid's favorite place to get breakfast tacos because they have pig in a blanket.
Oh yeah. Anyways, we had gone there, my wife and I, for lunch on Tuesday, and this is the first day I was at the OpenStack show floor. What do you call that? An expo hall? Tables, and exhibitors, and it had that white noise, like that you're in a big hall. Yep. And I also just ate like half a pound of brisket, and I was talking with someone, and I guess mid-sentence I just started staring off, and they looked at me and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I realized that I was just like forced inadvertently into this like conference meditation by the lack of blood, I guess, in my head, because it went down to my stomach to digest the beef. And then also just that white noise sound, I was just like, I'm feeling really serene. And I got to tell you, after I've had several servings of lamb, sausage, prime rib, something that they call not the mashed potato or something. It's all in Portuguese, so I don't know how to speak that, or any language. But man, so much meat. Are
you going to get a recurring dose or another dose Sunday night for the DevOps Day Austin speaker dinner?
No. I'm not, I mean, I already need to badly finish and then rehearse my talk, and I may not end up doing that. So I'm just like not. I'm going to stay with the family, because then I'm going to stay out like Monday night at DevOps Days Austin, or let me correct that. I'm going to not get home until the kids are asleep. So like I'm already not going to do that on Sunday.
So you're coming for the chef happy hour Monday night. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah,
chef happy hour. I'm all about it. I hear Public Cloud and Chef are like it's like ice cubes and bourbon, anyways, and then I'm going to the Agile and Beyond conference to speak in Ypsilanti, Michigan, right outside of Ann Arbor at the end of the week. So that is the reason I'm not going to the Brazilian barbecue Sunday night for DevOps Days Austin.
We'll miss you. I will eat vegetables in your honor.
Yeah, I forget what they called it. They called it something euphemistic at Fago de Chao, like the marketplace or something. But the buffet that they have, it was very impressive. It was even more impressive than a European hotel breakfast buffet, which I hold in high regard. You go, they got all sorts of stuff on there. You got your cheeses, your lunch meats.
So back to OpenStack, but you're starting to go off on your tangent there. What was new and exciting? I know you gave a talk. How'd that work?
Yeah, what's the mood, Cote? Give us. I want to hear. Where are we at on in the hype cycle?
Well, it's funny you should ask that question, Brandon. I made myself pause there just to see
it's not funny at all. It's actually entirely predictable.
I like that you're in the same room. I like that's nice. It's a good room that you're in there. But I'm starting to sound like Donald Trump. I've got a lot of friends. I've got lots of friends in the OpenStack world. They love me. They love me in OpenStack. Anyways, I moderated a panel on developer relations and marketing, which I think went pretty well thanks to the panelists on there. And we even had, I didn't say this at the time, but I abhor audience questions in whatever format.
More panels, please.
Yeah, but we had 4 questions, and they were all questions that I would have appreciated seeing asked and answered. So, congrats to everyone all around. Although my buddy Alex Williams, a no-show. I don't know what happened, but he must have had a deadline he had to file for.
Well, hopefully he'll repost our podcast and make up for it.
Yes. Yeah, you know what he always does? He always he makes our R-rated titles G-rated. Him and the staff over there.
That's how we trick them. We tone down the titles, and then we get them with a big F. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like, I thought this was going to be about deodorant, but it's really just about fuck.
There it is.
There it is.
And there's
we're just trying to get
this show.
We're just trying to get Matt Ray just trained up on the lingo.
All right, back Coach A. Tell me where we're at with OpenStack.
So someone asked.
Do we care? Should we care about it? Do we still love it?
Someone had brought up the hype cycle and how you can use that to figure out how to talk to developers, which is this guy Brandon Hayes at the front side, and so that brought the hype cycle into the room, as it were.
That's cool.
And so someone asked. They said, "Where do you think OpenStack is in the hype cycle?" And my answer, I kind of forget what the answer of the other people was. There'll be a recording, so you can look it up. My answer was like, I think it's emerging out of the trough of disillusionment. I think there were inflated expectations a while ago, and there was a long time it was in the trough of disillusionment. There's a lot of people who still have bitter resentment, who will always they'll always hate it. They'll always like remember Goldwater and just like be upset about that.
And their net promoter scores.
Yeah, and you know, so you just got to kind of give up on those folks. It's not even a haters gonna hate situation. It's just like they got burned, right? Like, as I am famous for saying, I remember I once had to lay off 11 people I didn't know because of OpenStack. So you know, I can be a little upset about it sometimes, but I think it's fine. Like it's almost in the plateau of productivity where no one really hates it and no one really likes it. It's like the comparison I made was it's like USB. No one's ever like fucking USB or like, oh my god, USB is awesome.
USB with the fucking upside down plugs and
Well, USB, the USB we all know, is it 2.0 or 3.0, whatever, just like straight up USB. Maybe the mini USB. Maybe the little one, but not that one that's got that weird bump.
All right, so Coach, to test your hypothesis here then, it would be you first need to look at the show floor. Like if it's height of inflated expectations is there's like it's way oversubscribed. There are all the major vendors have what amount to like small cities as like booths, and then there are like a million startups wrapping around.
Sure.
Then trough of disillusionment is like major vendors have just small booths, a few startups just kind of hanging on, but you've heard of them before, but you're not impressed. And then plateau of productivity is sort of just that nice, like everybody knows each other. A couple major vendors have big booths. A lot of established smaller companies eking out solid businesses. So how would you rate show floor?
I think that there were, let me think. Probably
were there any startups that you didn't know?
I don't think so. There were like some weird Asian hardware companies that I'd never heard of. But I think that's to be expected.
I think they're at every show. Actually, there's always that group.
They're trying to
like, I don't know what they are. I think they misread the brochure. That's everywhere.
Yeah. But I think, to Brandon's point, I think there is like, and I did say they're emerging in my defense. I think there's another step down of booth sizes that needs to occur, but I did not see any booths that I thought that is too lavish, right?
Okay.
There were what I would call medium-sized booths, right? So there were like IBM, Mirantis, Cisco. Not even Dell. Dell had like a small medium, like a mid-sized booth. But like there were a few booths that were like triple wides, if you will, right? Yeah. So if you can imagine, the normal thing is like a table, right? Like a table size thing. And there were some that were maybe like 3 table widths long, but not that many.
Right. So, okay, and then what about the talks? I think plateau of productivity is a lot of people talking about like, yeah, we did this, it worked. A lot of like just kind of like bread and butter case studies. People are just like, okay, cool, that's cool. And then versus like somebody, and then of course, trough of disillusionment is like nothing's ever going to work. And then inflated expectations is like this thing will cure every disease that has ever been built. IT has been fundamentally reinvented.
Wait, that should be in the front.
Like that, where like you're like, oh my god, I gotta get.
Now, I didn't actually go to any talks except my own.
But that's a notion of a plateau of productivity thing, because you're like, I've heard all of this. So
but I do have this printout. This is Thursday's talks right here, and then a little bit on the back. So
okay,
and they basically, I think they filled the whole convention center. Like they even went all the way down to the south side of it, right? Like,
right.
So yeah, I mean, if I look at this, there's a lot of just like meat and potato stuff here.
All right, so it seems like, based on this very thorough examination of the evidence, I think we'd have to say you're pretty much right, that they're emerging from trough of disillusionment, finding that plateau of productivity, or well on their way.
I mean, I met with, so I was downtown for a while kind of working the sidewalk track and talking with the bank who was there, and the guy was like, "Yeah, the talks are all about networking for telecoms, and OpenStack to me is kind of boring, but we're just going to get it from Red Hat and it'll be fine." And it's like, that sounds so.
Well, that, and I actually forgot our number one leading indicator was Matt Ray didn't even go to this, which tells you right away,
Yeah.
it is boring. It is like
No.
Too many normal people have
cannot-
shown up. No, let me finish. Too many normal people have shown up. The club has been broken into. It's no longer this elite group of technologists changing the world. Matt Ray's like, I don't even have time because I don't even have to travel. I'm not even going to bother to go. So that shows us we could be in laggard stage. Like, we're clearly in plateau productivity, but we could be down the hill.
I can assure you, my presence at a conference does not indicate that it is a sexy place to be. It's not an exciting place to be.
It indicates
if you look at where I've
technology.
if you look at where I've been, Google Next, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At an IBM conference earlier this year. You were there, Brandon.
I was. We had a good time. Actually,
I think
to buy me dinner, and I couldn't let you do that. So.
What Matt Ray is saying is that he has achieved the plateau of productivity.
That's true. That may be what it is.
I have achieved. I go to conferences when I know I have work to do there, and I had some conflicting stuff, some sales meetings this week, and I did not get a chance to go to OpenStack. I sent one of the guys on my team went.
Can I make a request, Matt Ray? The next show, would you put on a blue blazer for me? I'd just like to see you in a blue blazer during the next show. The first show from Australia, you must wear a blue blazer.
You know what I did this morning after going and talking to some customers and stuff?
Came home changed clothes.
I went and shopped for a suit downtown.
Oh,
that will be the inaugural episode from Australia. You need to be in a minimum blue blazer. If you can go the whole suit, that would be great too.
There are a lot of banks in Australia.
There is, and they do dress nice there. So I've heard.
Yep. So it's a business experience.
Okay, who else was at OpenStack? I saw like the obligatory tweets, like Red Monk guys were there, right? Wasn't there some Red Monk news? Like somebody's joining or something?
Oh yeah, they hired a new analyst. I was just reading about that as we were recording,
Did you meet the new analyst?
No, there was Stephen O'Grady was there and Donnie Burkholz. So he's not there anymore.
451.
He's 451. He's following the Coach A career path.
Yes.
Right?
It's the stake is infecting my memories.
Any moment now, he'll be leaving 451 for Pivotal.
Yes. Yeah.
Or Dell first.
Oh, I think he can skip that step.
Well, soon they'll be the same.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, also just to close out, my old buddies at 451, they had some market estimates for OpenStack. They said,
I love this. This is my favorite part.
This year, $1.2 billion. Estimated 2018, $3.37 billion. And I think that is private and public.
Are those estimates higher than the last report they issued or lower?
I didn't look.
I don't follow it day to day like me.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't look those dimensions up.
Okay.
So I think the numbers that I'd seen for, everything that they call public cloud right about now is what, 23 billion?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that estimate for the OpenStack market sizing is just rack space.
That's what I was gonna say. Was Rackspace there? I mean, this is kind of their hometown, not really. I know
Rackspace was there.
And they always have a lot of love for OpenStack.
Yeah, it was fine. So it was a nice conference. I liked it. I'll have to whenever the video of the panel gets posted. It was a nice discussion. There were a few insights I hadn't thought of, so I found it useful.
Good.
So also speaking of hype cycles, I read through this Docker survey that came out recently.
Boom!
It was fun stuff. They have 511 respondents. 59% were from software companies. And then 56% were from orgs less than 100 employees, and 47% of them categorize themselves as devs or developer managers. So it's sort of, it's I wouldn't say representative of the general population, but there were nonetheless interesting things in there.
So what's the headline? Developers love Docker? Is that kind of the way we'd say it?
I think, if I were going to boil it down, what would I like the most out of it? There was one figure that the respondent said that they had increased their frequency of software release by 13x, which sounds lucky.
Whoa.
And I think there's also what I liked about it. So given the demographics, like it's a little hard to say it's representative of the market, right? Like this is a small slice of general population in the world.
Yep.
So it's useful to see what their sentiment and their plans are and what they're doing. And one thing that I thought was interesting, not because I agree or disagree with it, but like 43% of them said that they were planning to move legacy apps to microservices. And they were like looking for Docker to help them out with that, which that's interesting. Like, it's because that's a, speaking of like that talk that I need to practice more. Ouch. That's like the big next problem when it comes to like DevOps and cloud native and all this stuff is like,
that's like consulting goldmine.
Say, is it like a white paper? There must be like 1,000 white papers on this. Moving legacy apps.
No, like you need to rewrite that stuff so you're cloud native, and buy our services. It's gonna be. And
awesome. They had another one that what the impact for developers was. 65% said and I'm quoting this, eliminate the quote works on my machine.
Oh,
so that sounds good. Okay. Faster developer onboarding, increased release cycles. Just so it's having the intended effects. And then the last one, there's another chart that's like ranks what they want out of a platform that had some interesting stuff in it. It's basically like, I want it to do everything.
Does it say anything about orchestration?
I don't. There might have been. I don't remember that part. I'm sure that was in there somewhere. But the other part, at a meta layer, the other part that was interesting to read it was how Docker positions itself and the markety speak that they're sort of aligning themselves to, which is basically you need faster, newer ways of doing development and cloud stuff and all of that. So there's a pretty direct line from, at least in this survey, that's the copy that's in there to that. And they have they thoroughly quote James Governor over at Red Monk, who said something about Docker being awesome. So
no.
That's actually showed up in a few of their email newsletter spam things recently, and so
that's what analysts are for.
PDFs, if you're an analyst.
So where did they get their respondents?
I didn't read about that part. I mean, I'm assuming it's a lot of these things is they just. I learned this from watching a lot of how they do the DevOps thing, and there's some methodology called like rolling snowball or something, which basically amounts to viral spread in social media. Okay. Like you just go out to all the people and you say you should tell people to go fill out this survey. And so there's like some kind of I don't know the technical term for all this. I'm sure there's some sort of bias of like if you went out and talked to all your liberal friends, it turns out people like liberal things or whatever. But I think given this stuff, I don't really know what else you could do. Survey stuff in the past, like the methodologies are equally not too awesome, right? Like until you survey like tens of thousands of people, like I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, because I've got some anecdotal data. I was up in the lovely DFW Metroplex, talking with big companies around there, and after like the third customer we went and talked to, I was, I'm learning how salespeople work, and I like turned to the SA and I was like, nobody ever said Docker in that meeting. What's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, nobody ever asked about that. So it'll get there undoubtedly, but it's that whole how can people ask about Docker when they're still trying to get off of Red Hat 5, right?
Yeah. 43% legacy app to microservices.
Yeah. No, I'm in there like, oh yeah. Of course it works on AIX.
Yeah.
Whew. So what else is going on? What?
Sorry, my dog. What happens is the dog really wants to come into the room, and then about 10 minutes into the call, the dog wants out. And then I get that dog slime on my hand because I have to pet her the whole time. It's terrible. it's a rough life I'm living. Well, I ran into several people at the conference who were listeners.
Yeah?
Particularly, there was a fellow from Brazil who liked the show, so that's nice.
Whoa, we're big in Brazil.
It came all the way up for some OpenStack and came over and said hello, and some other people. So that's nice. All the stuff is, and I also, as some other feedback, I was there helping out at the Cloud Foundry Foundation, the CFF table. So I was next to one of the people who works there, and I asked her to look up the little promo code I have for going to the Cloud Foundry Foundation, and she said 2 people had used it.
Boom.
So how about that, CPM, Brandon? Is that are we going to take over now? Is that what we need?
I think we have plenty of runway ahead of us. we have numbers, and we will grow at a huge percentage.
Yeah. So I don't know. 2 over about 1,200 is a pretty good CPM rate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
was there some Cloud Foundry news? Wasn't someone like appointed or something?
Well, they have a fellowship program, and someone.
That's what I was looking for. What does that even mean?
It's basically like
if I'm a fellow, what can I do?
You've got the Cloud Foundry Foundation, and it's Abby Kearns is her name, and she's over there. I think it's for like 3 or 6 months. I forget how many months, and she's basically still a pivotal employee, but she's like on loan. It's like when the military people go and work for NATO.
Oh, my dad did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that they're working on community related stuff, and I think she's going to help out with like marketing and messaging stuff, not like the PR type of marketing and messaging and talking more with analysts. Just as you do, raising the profile of stuff and doing the work. You always need more help with the marketing.
Well, good for her. Yeah.
And I'm sure there was some other. We got the Cloud Foundry Summit coming up next month. Will be stuff then. So speaking of that, you Matt Ray, you are not usually one who like scours the barrens financially, but it looks like you finally found the figures of private versus public cloud adoption. Now, is this part of your new sales tactics that you're looking these things up?
Which what are you referring to?
It says CIO's report. Now, not just 16%, but 16.2% of workloads are currently running in public cloud. And in 5 years, not only 41%, but 41.3% of workloads will run in public cloud. I love people who deal in CAGRs outside of like investments, because like why? Like this suggests at least a 20% CAGR in public cloud work growth. Check out those CAGRs.
I don't know where I got those numbers.
This is sort of just like a pastiche of topics here at this point, but it's fun. I always like finding these numbers of estimating how much on-premise versus public cloud stuff is out there, because I think that's I think over the next couple of years that's going to be the big question: is like is private cloud real?
So I when I was up in Dallas, I actually gave a talk on kind of that, where I was told, hey, we're having this customer event, and we want you to tell people why they should move to the public cloud. I was like, all right, I guess I can give that talk. So I gave that talk, and essentially it was like, well, public cloud people are, you got your OpEx and your CapEx, you're going to save money, and they're going to keep dropping their prices. And if you complain about security, man, they've got hundreds of security people working there. How many do you have? And and if you've got good people, they're going to get hired away. So just give up.
Just give in.
Give in. And of course, the funny thing is, like, 3 or 4 years ago, I gave a talk like, well, you got to watch out for that public cloud. You don't know what's going to happen up there. And now I'm like, just give in.
How did it go over? How was the talk?
Nobody argued. I think, it was kind of like, well, you can build up a good public, private cloud staff, and but then somebody like Comcast lost their entire team to Walmart, and AT&T lost their whole team to Cisco. People are just hiring away teams these days. I saw who was it? Was it Airbnb? Somebody is now has a recruiting thing, so you can, they're trying to hire away teams.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw that on the Twitters, and I was like, "You got a dog in your face." um, it was just like, wow, you gotta really like your coworkers, and you're like, hey, you know what? The five of us, let's go.
Yeah, because then you can just drop them in and they start working, right?
Well,
Something
It
like
seems to
that.
like shortcut the whole process because it does seem, what's the old saying, software developers travel in packs. It's like you hire one and then it slowly trickles. So like, why not just make it more efficient?
we did
It's
it
a
at Xenos.
microservice. Just provision everyone, re-provision everyone to the new company. It's just faster that way.
Wait, so what do you see day to day, Brandon, with the public cloud versus private cloud? You're in a different part of the stack. Like, what's the sentiment you encounter all the time?
I think the number is actually kind of interesting because what did you say, 16% and some decimal, right? So the power of math, 84% of things are still out there in whatever on-premise private cloud, and it's like, yeah, no, that's definitely a world I see a lot more of. And I think that's kind of an interesting question. Is like when does public cloud go over 50%? Like, is that 5 years away, 10 years away? And I don't know. I think that's why I hear these numbers. It's just the reality is like, hey, all this stuff is on premise. It's going to be here for a long time. No doubt there's going to be a lot of growth in public cloud. So I don't know why it's so interesting to people, like the growth rates. I guess it's just, if you're interested in something that's faster growing, public cloud's going to be where it's at. If you're interested in larger numbers of revenue, private and on-premise is going to be where it's at for a while. So
Yeah,
it's just like, what do you care about? Like, what team are you on?
yeah. It seems analogous to like electric cars and combustion cars, where it's sort of like all the stuff for the new way is here, and as Matt Ray just elucidated, is kind of fine, and yet you're probably going to buy a gas car for your next car. Like it's just hard to buy into the new thing.
Yeah, but you still had 300,000 people want to buy a new Tesla.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. What did you call it, Brandon? The magic of math. That's how math works.
The magic math. Right, but it's I think it's like also like the Apple thing is always interesting because Apple, reported their first whatever decline in revenue, I think in like 10 years or something, and it was like, it's like still an incredibly. I always think it's just interesting, the headlines. People are like, I think there's some Apple backlash. People are kind of glad, like, thank God these Apple people experience some kind of decline, even though it's. And then you look at the absolute numbers, you're like, it's like, is this billions? It's like, oh my God, this is billions of dollars. like this business is going to be so
what are you people complaining about?
the next 10 years, right? It's like, but then people want to say, well, Amazon, which doesn't have a profits, but they grow. So I don't know. It's just weird. Like, what do we want as an industry? What is everyone? I guess if you're in the startup world, you want growth and you want this huge premium. I think if you're a larger company, you just want a really profitable company. And I don't know. It is kind of like teams. It's just, I just see this every day where people want to like get excited about one team or the other, where it's like, it's all just the same facts.
Yeah, I've been reading that. How do you say his name? Dan Loins, like that Disrupted book about him working at HubSpot. He was the guy who was fake Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm about 2/3 through it, and it's like a mixture of like I don't know, gleeful naivete with like tech writing and the usual like, what's up with companies that don't make profit, right? But it's also it's kind of refreshing to read like a professed pseudo outsider, kind of like old guy. I mean, he is an old white guy take on it, which is like, I don't understand why all these people are so happy, right? And like he has this really vicious chapter about Salesforce and Mark Benioff, where he's just like kind of ripping at them and making them into a cultic figure, and points out they'd never made any profit. And like it's a good dark take of a lot of what you're just talking about, Brandon, where it's like, I don't understand how this system works. Like, what? Not even from the vantage point of what's the end goal, but just day to day, what the hell is going on here? Like, what motivates these people, and how do they operate, and how do you, like, it's not even a reality distortion fear. It's just a weird, like, as people would say, bubble where people operate in, and it's it's depressing.
There's another article this week that that I just again saw this, and it was talking about the Apple Watch, right? And so somebody was commenting on like, so now it's become kind of just common for people to write about how the Apple Watch is a failure, and list out the things it doesn't do. It's like, okay, fine. Like we've all read a lot of those articles. So but this article took a different slant and just basically made the point like it's just about perspective. And so they said, okay, Rolex, which I think everyone realizes that's a luxury watchmaker, they did $4.5 billion in revenue last year. So
Right.
the Apple Watch did $6 billion in revenue last year, right?
Yeah.
Estimated. Of course, it's not broken out. So when compared that way, if we didn't know it was Apple, we'd say this company has come in and basically taken over 60% of the market share of luxury watches.
Overnight.
And you're like, wow, that's incredible. But then when you compare that same thing to the iPhone, you're like, this thing, it's like a rounding error. It doesn't even matter.
Right.
And I get it. Like, I guess to me, it's just interesting. It is just about perspective, right? Like whatever perspective you want. And then really those two numbers just provide the narrative that you're predisposed to write. Like if you want to write that Apple is failing or the Apple Watch is a failure, you use the iPhone. If you want to believe it's the next greatest thing, you use Rolex and a few other statistics. And again, it's just like, I guess that old adage, like everything in life is just about perspective. And I think all this stuff,
Totally.
Amazon and
Well,
Dell and IBM and the startups, it's like it just picks. If you adjust your perspective, you can say whatever you want. But again, the facts are the thing.
I'm gonna have to go Spinal Tap on that one. Just too much fucking perspective.
Too much perspective. Too much perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in a tangential way, it I think it's like the Cisco community podcast. I was on that or recorded a thing of that when I was at the OpenStack Summit, and for some reason we got to talking about like Dell and like I was going over like when I was in strategy, I ended up working with like investment bankers and MBAs, and I was talking about how that was my old joke about the people I've been avoiding all my life, and but they do, like, it relates to something we talk about frequently here, which is sort of like, how does finance work, and specifically like how does valuation work? And that's the thing that like those MBA iBanker people, like that's pretty much, they do two things other than, as they say, arts and crafts to make your Excel and PowerPoint look really good. But so the other two things they do is they put a valuation on something, which as it turns out is really hard to figure out what something is worth before it is paid for. And then they do all the negotiating to get something paid for, right? They're salespeople or negotiators, if you will. But if you go back to the valuation thing, like I always figure a lot of the ups and down of Apple stuff. Like if our buddy Ed was here, he would say, well, because that's how he talks. The reason it's disappointing is because everyone had baked into the valuation number, the share price, expectations about what revenue was going to be. And then so if they don't meet those revenue expectations, then their models were wrong, and therefore the share price has to adjust itself, right? Which, if you think about that, is kind of crazy in the sense of you're getting punished because people were wrong about predicting how much you were going to sell, but you still sold a butt ton, right?
Yeah, but
whereas, and then so the other side of that is, and you see with providing guidance and stuff, is like a company has to very carefully like lower expectations or like somehow control them. So, I mean, after a while, it's just a vicious cycle of everyone gets what they deserve, right? Like, all the millionaires and billionaires on both sides just cry into their Chablis that night as their limo is driving.
And nobody knows how Salesforce bought such a big building.
Right, but it is like it's like every time I look at stuff like
Apple
going down, it's a weird. It's almost like fake stuff. Like it's value that didn't exist in the first place.
Right, but I think you're hitting on like the key thing. It's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a group of people trying. I mean, it makes total sense. A group of people trying to value something, right? That makes total sense. And then getting new information and deciding that was either right or wrong, and then making some new assumptions going from it. What I think is interesting is the like again, the teams that like emerge out of it. It becomes like a sporting event, an emotional thing, versus like a very logical way to be like, hey, we made some assumptions. We thought this was going to happen. It did or did not happen. Now we have some new information, and we think next quarter it's going to do this. Like, but there's no reason to be like, okay, peak Apple has now happened, or like this is the greatest time to buy Apple because the watch market is going to like explode. It's like, wait a minute, whoa, like you just got a new number, right? Like I wouldn't think anything can change it. Your next 2-year outlook just on one number, but you see it, and then again the news wants to present it, and like maybe that makes the nightly news or national news, and then it just creates these crazy things, and it's like that's the part I don't get. It's just sort of like, wow, like this is way out of proportion, and the responses are way out of proportion to just one data point.
Well, and so many of the executives are compensated on the jiggling of the stock, which makes them make
absolutely
all sorts of,
right. Makes it even more
worse. And they make short-term decisions rather than while they're trying to make a nice stable company like an SAP.
Well, and I think, I don't know, for everyone who listens onto these podcasts, I think maybe it's developers, maybe it's some marketing people, and maybe it's just some people that are bored. But I do think in your own life, you probably see it in two places. Like if you're on the development side, it's like these moments, these kind of numbers often end up shaking up a roadmap. Like you had this like nice roadmap, maybe you had this longer period of time to build it, and then someone walks in and is like, in 2 weeks, we're launching this no matter what. And you're like, what happened, right? And I think on the marketing side, like there's usually this quarterly business review or something. Like one day everything's okay, you're cruising along. The next day is everything needs to change, and you're like, it's just a number, right? It was all about perspective. Like if we just think back, like why did we believe that number, and do we really need to cascade all these changes across the entire organization because of this one number, or will it just create a lot of? And I just see it. I mean, I see it over and over in multiple roles and multiple companies. So maybe it is just human nature.
Yep.
Well, we have some. We're speaking of snowballs. We've gotten even more feedback. Let me just go over some. And also, we had a little experiment last time. Speaking of working a plan to numbers, as it were. So first of all,
so should we get outrageously upset or extremely excited, no matter what you say?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
You could, and this could be an or in the sense that you could do both. It doesn't have to be an XOR.
We can simultaneously be happy but sad. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. Just whatever drugs you need. But so I recommended Old Bay seasoning last time, and it reminded me of something that I had not. Our buddy, the full snack developer, one of the best turns of phrases ever. He recommended putting Old Bay seasoning on French fries. Which
yes,
I think I've had that once, and that just, I mean, you're from Baltimore, so you're probably like, when you're born, they don't slap your butt, they just give you some Old Bay seasoning to clear your esophageal system. Is that a technical
two clarifications. I'm not from Baltimore. Maryland's a bigger state than one city. So
are you sure?
I know no one from Texas will learn that.
From Annapolis, the other city.
Old Bay on French fries is good.
Now Maryland is the one that's like right next to New York, right?
I'm not having this conversation. I'm just done. It's like, I don't know. I mean, this is why people hate Texans, right? This is why everyone hates Texas. Go on. I say that as someone who lives in Austin and likes it, but again, these people in Texas are crazy. For everyone else, I've been down here. I've met a lot of them. It's a good place, but there's a lot of crazy people too.
Yeah, that's true. So Annapolis, do they have Old Bay seasoning there?
They do. They have quite a bit, and the Naval Academy.
And another tip for my fellow Texans: when they say lobster roll, what they mean is a lobster sandwich. There's no roll involved.
Yes,
like
there's no roll.
No,
that's more Boston. That's again, we're changing geography.
But you got them all over there.
In Texas, it's all the same. But again, that's the
wait. Are lobster rolls hot or cold?
They're hot. Hopefully, if they're cold, I don't know if I would eat that.
Okay. So if we were in the state of
lobster thing, then
if we were in the state of Maryland, what is the cuisine we would be eating?
We would be having crabs. We'd have crabs with Old Bay.
Crabs with Old Bay. Okay, so I got that right.
The French fries, and we could dip the French fries in the hot butter and the Old Bay to, one, make sure we have a really high calorie meal, and two, it's really good.
This is why healthcare is such a big industry in the Northeast.
Yes, this is true. One of the reasons.
Anyhow, put Old Bay seasoning on your French fries when you're trying to figure out what the fuck the difference between Annapolis and Baltimore is.
Oh.
It's
I know we have listeners there. I'm just saying. I know we have listeners there, and it's not going to be pretty.
so. Because I mean, I'm sure it's the same that Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston, basically the same thing.
Pretty
I
much.
mean, we can all agree.
We are losing the Mid-Atlantic listenership right now. These listeners are leaving in droves.
We can say more nice things about Old Bay.
I put chapter markers in the last episode. Did either of you see that?
Yeah.
If you're using Overcast, it's very nice.
So I've got a lot to say about that, but I'll keep it brief. One, I tried to put chapters in using Fission, a great audio editor from Rogue Amoeba, and I'm sure it was user error, which is to say it didn't work very well. Right? Like it managed to chop it up, but then it used the title of the podcast for each chapter thing. So then I got this application called the Chapters app, and I paid $20 for it because because I don't lobster rolls or something.
There goes to profits.
Yeah,
this podcast done.
Business models for this year is not going well, folks. We're gonna have to tell the street.
Negative CAGR. Gone.
But that basically worked. But I noticed that while most of the chapters worked, some of them were a little off. So if you were and it worked perfectly in the Chapters app, but then when you finally get the MP3 and Overcast, like when you go to the chapter, it's a little funky. So I don't know. I can't really tell if that was a good idea or not. It was fine. And let's see. We also should be in the Google Play Store now. Someone needs to verify. That's the feedback that I got. And there was some suggestion that Mesosphere is like fleet management, to use our auto metaphor. So I don't really even remember that part. I need to go back and listen to the
we talked about that?
Yeah, we were talking about how is Mesosphere like cars versus fleets of cars.
Oh yeah, that was
all sorts of things like that.
That
was a big conversation topic in the I don't know if I would call it the Sideway conference that Matt Ray was having, but the Hallway Con there was lots of talk about what's going on with competition in this space. Who does what? Who do you compete with, and who competes with them? That was interesting.
It wasn't sorted out in the Docker survey?
Yes. 46% moving legacy apps to microservices.
Oh.
So, Brandon, who is from Annapolis, what is your pick for this week? Your recommendation?
Well, picking up on my discussion of the Apple Watch, I was going to say I've had an Apple Watch, and I'm going to spare everyone the review of it's good or bad. I will just tell you that I do like it to use it to work out. I like to track what I'm doing, and it works better with a heart rate monitor. And I just bought one from Wahoo Fitness. It's the Ticker, which is TICKR. I guess they lost the E. They couldn't pay for the E in the trademark. But if you want a Bluetooth and heart rate monitor, and it also has the other wireless protocol, which name escapes me now, but it will definitely work with Apple Watch. It's cool if you want to see, how many calories you're burning, what your heart rate is, how hard you're working, and I'm sure it works with other Bluetooth devices as well. But I like it, so
it's good. So I can dip 10 of these front instead of just 5.
Exactly. When you're running in Annapolis,
yes,
the naval base, and you want to know how many French fries you can count it up. See, there you go. Enjoy.
How about yourself, Matt? What do you recommend this week?
I don't really have I had a lot of negative experiences this week. Right now,
how about an anti-recommendation? Give us an anti-recommendation. He doesn't even have that. He's like, I'm going to Australia.
I'm leaving.
Got a little bit of senioritis here.
Yeah, there's a bit of it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Matt Ray's recommendation: public cloud.
I think
he recommends public cloud this week.
A comment about renting your house out, something like Matt Ray, like don't do it, or isn't that something around that?
Well, that goes with my recommendation of sometimes if you ask for something, you'll get it, but it'll come with a ton of stress. So, yes, any listeners want to rent my house?
Oh wow, that's gonna go downhill right there.
That would really
increase
our CPM.
I'd like to say, don't put Matt Ray's the URL for his house listing in this. That could go.
That could go. Yeah. Contact me directly.
Yes. Contact directly. A very important qualification process needs to happen before you can discuss that.
Yeah. I mean, I did have a fairly pleasant encounter with booking my flight on Qantas. So we always like to talk about airlines. I sorted the matrix mystery of how to use your American status on Qantas. So yeah, because they're one world partners, but you can't book one. You can't pick your seat from the other. It's the worst.
Oh man, yeah, I hate that. That's no good.
Yeah, because you've flown that BA flight, right?
Yeah,
and you got to be careful.
I would like to offer a tip to listeners. This is how you do it. If you want, and maybe Matt Ray figure this out. But even if you don't get it on the website, call the airline that you booked. So if you booked American, you're flying British, but be very succinct. Act like you know what you're doing, and say the following question: hey, I need the record locator for the British Airways or whatever, the actual airline you're going. I need the record locator of the airline that I'm flying. And just say it just like that, and they'll just give it to you right away because they just think you know what you're doing. And then at that point, you can get in there and do whatever you want with the actual people that are flying the plane.
That's nice.
If you book on the One World partner, it shows up on the American side. If you book on the American side, it doesn't show up on the other side.
Ooh, Americans.
So
yeah. And also on that BA flight, there's that total bullshit exit row seat. You know that one, Matt Ray? Where unless you go look up on Seat Guru and read that, and I remember this. I've been lucky enough not to, but it's like the exit door, like it's got some sort of tumor in it, goes right in front of you.
Yes,
I hate those fake exits.
Yeah, and they're toilet spillage.
Yeah.
Worst seat.
What is it? Proximity to lavatory may be annoying. Yeah. Well, my recommendation this week, I don't know how I came across this, but I'll put a link to it. But there's someone spent a lot of time doing some animated GIFs of Randy Savage, the Macho Man. And they're just these little clips from him. And my favorite one is Hulk Hogan goes up to him to shake his hand, and he holds out his hand. And then Randy, remember, I forgot he did this, but he would do that thing where he really slowly brings down his hand to shake it. And there's just all sorts of good memories in there from back in the 80s. Good old Macho Man.
Load up the show notes.
There's about 8 animated GIFs in there. You can go explore to your delight. Well, as always, thanks for listening. This has been Software Defined Talk, which you can find at softwaredefinedtalk.org. You can get the show notes also by going there, but you can go to cote.io/SDT61. And I'll probably still have a lot of meat in my brain when I'm typing up the show notes, so you can spot some typos. But, among other things, like I was mentioning earlier, I've got a lot of promo codes for conferences you can go to. DevOps Days Seattle and DevOps Days Minneapolis. And we'll have some more discounts that you can get 15, 10, 20% off various ones. If you use those codes, you can go look up. And if you want to go to the Cloud Foundry Foundation Summit next month, I'll be there. You can come say hello. You can use the code CF16 COTE, COT, to register. And I'll put all that in the show notes as well. But, until next week, we won't see you.